Brilliant. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time of day it is where you are. We are so happy to see you here on day 2 of Inside Out. Welcome to our panel discussion, Unveiling the Impacts of Seasonality in Marketing. I'm your host, Lexi Alm, Senior Account Manager supporting the Digital House, and the Offbeat and Considerate Advisor, or Purple, Yellow, Orange. We have a couple of meaty questions prepared to kick things off, but as you're listening to our panelists, please feel free to drop your questions or comments in the chat. Steph will be helping me to monitor, and we'll aim to get as many as we can in the time we have. If we can't get to all of them, questions you share may inspire future trainings or sessions, so thank you in advance for your contributions. We have a stellar lineup of panelists who will introduce themselves and tell you what they do, where they come from, and what unique perspective they each bring to this session. Emily, would you like to kick off our intros?
I would love to kick off our intros. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Emily Denny. I am the content marketing specialist here at Carnegie. I am the fun and supportive shepherd. My colors are purple, green, and red. I am going to be bringing a perspective on all things B2B marketing. You might know me from my work in the general channel, writing the Daily Digest, which is my esteemed privilege to bring you all every day at 9:30 in the morning. I will be doing B2B marketing. That's what I'm doing. I suck the landing. On to you, Mel.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. And Emily, I look forward to that digest every day. So keep it up and thank you for doing it. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Bangston. Most people call me Mel. I'm Senior Vice President of Strategy on the Research, Modeling, and Strategy Division. I'm the Independent and Resilient Contender, which is maroon, blue, and silver. I have been here at the company for 6 years. Prior to that, spent 10 years overseeing communications and marketing in higher education on a campus of the University of Minnesota. So we'll be giving some perspectives on both, obviously, how we serve our clients, but have been on the other side as well, serving in the role that many of our clients are. So that's me, and I'm going to kick it over to Ashley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Sikora, and I'm the director of the paid search team. Prior to joining Carnegie, I worked at a university in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in both undergraduate and graduate admissions, and I'm representing the digital team on the panel today. I am the resilient and inquisitive globetrotter. My team colors are also red and green, like Emily didn't realize that. Red, green, and maroon.
Awesome. As you can see, we have an incredible lineup today, so we'll jump right into our questions. From vacation season to holidays to the upcoming election, seasonality is a critical driver in the digital marketing space. Layered over top of that, there are times in the year where our clients experience surges in activity from their intended audiences. As an agency, we also have to keep the seasonality of both the market and our clients in mind when we position Carnegie in the marketplace. Let's hear from our panelists on what seasonality entails, what it looks like for higher ed specifically, and how Carnegie handles seasonality. Ashley, could you please start us off with a primer on seasonality in digital marketing?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off even just going back another step and just do what is seasonality in general, not related to higher education. So basically defining that seasonality is a characteristic of a time series in which the data experiences regular and predictable changes that reoccur every calendar year. A bit of a mouthful, but any predictable fluctuation or pattern that occurs or repeats over a one-year period is said to be seasonal. So going through just some general examples that these should resonate with anyone here. First one, generally retail, very seasonal. Many retailers experience an influx in sales during the holiday season. So think October through December. Then they experience that post-holiday slump the first few months of the year, especially in January. Consumers are beginning to pay their holiday spending bills. Returns happen. Next example, travel industry, very seasonal. Think of gas and airfare sales rise in the spring and they peak in late summer as families take vacation when schools are on breaks. And then a smaller seasonal trend is right around now, spring break, especially to beaches and resorts. And demand tends to fall as school resumes and seasonal destinations experience their off seasons, usually due to weather. So think of those like predictable, like every year we're going to expect those increases, rises, and falls. Two more examples to help set the stage for higher ed is the auto industry, car sales. So car dealers typically experience the most difficulty in selling their inventory during the winter months. So particularly January, February, and into early March. So this is kind of launching off into one of their peak seasons. As the weather improves, people receive their tax refunds, car sales increase during the spring months. And those two peak seasons for auto sales occur during the spring from March, basically now through May. Think Memorial Day weekend sales, President's Day weekend sales, even kicking those off. And then from September through November, that fall spike is often increasing, and you're often seeing a demand there when the manufacturers release their new models for the upcoming year. So it could be wanting to get the next new model, or also trying to get rid of their previous year models. And then one last example is heating and cooling, which jumps out as also very obvious. Basically, as seasonality plays a significant role in the heating and cooling industry, as demand for these services largely are influenced by weather. So during the warm summer months, demand for air conditioning services tend to be higher, while the colder months, demand for heating services tend to increase. This often results in a very seasonal cycle for these companies, where the business tends to be milder or slower in the milder months. So think spring and fall, where you don't need necessarily to be blasting your heat or air, and then much busier in the fall, in the winter. I'm sorry, in the winter and the summer.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. Mel, could you speak to some of the elements at play when it comes to seasonality in marketing higher ed specifically?
Absolutely. So there are, of course, even some of those examples that Ashley just gave. It also plays into some of the seasonality within higher education, but there's also the things that are driven within the industry that also drive seasonality. So a lot of deadlines. So, scholarship deadlines and application deadlines, and our famous and beloved FAFSA deadlines and things like that can really help drive the seasonality, and when are the busy times, when are the slower times. But the same goes for, just culturally, the holiday season can also drive some seasonality. There's often not a lot of busyness in terms of maybe visitors or on-campus dynamics and things like that. When you reach a Christmas time, a New Year's time, things like that, there's a slower period where either the client is taking some time to away from the office, or maybe that's when they're getting some of the work done that they need to get ahead of. We're of course thinking about, the enrollment cycle and how that plays a part. We have sometimes higher visits on, on our campuses in the summer, because that's when the prospective students, the traditional age prospective students, are not in their school. So they're able to take road trips more often. They're able to freely travel and visit. And so you can think about how that plays a part of the planning and the things that go into marketing shops, enrollment shops that we're helping with when they're dealing with that seasonality. And it's also interesting because I think there's also a collision of seasonality at times. So often an enrollment office and a marketing office has not even gotten a recruiting class in the door before they're already on to that next class and driving the bulk of that work. And so they're simultaneously dealing with the seasonality issues that come with whatever audience that they're communicating with on top of one another. And so those things can really drive how difficult it can be to manage, and how many things that our clients are dealing with, and the behavior changes that come along with that. And then on top of different audience types. So there's the traditional academic year and the seasonality that brings for a traditional college-bound student. But then you've got online education where sometimes it's rolling admissions and might start every month or might start every 2 months. And so the seasonality still exists. It's just super truncated. Couldn't even say that word. And again, the expectations and the way that the clients are needing to react to that play a big part.
Thanks, Mel. Emily, how does Carnegie take on the concept of seasonality in our own marketing efforts?
It's interesting because marketing, from the perspective of marketing, the whole company is entirely about supporting all of our individual divisions, and every division is a little bit different. They have different seasons, they have different cycles that they're responding to, and part of our job is staying in the know about what all of those different cycles are and responding to the things that they tell us. Like we recently re-promoted our admitted student research service and our message assessment service because we got word that now was a really good time to put that back out into the market, that the market would really respond to that. And then we got a good response from putting that back out in the market. Because I mean, everybody who works marketing knows that it's as much about what you say as when you say it and where you get people information, like even on the most granular of scales, like there are better days and worse days to send emails. Like sending mass emails at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday is generally not a good idea, as sending your emails at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, because that's when people are at their desk. People don't answer their emails after 4 p.m. They'll probably leave it till Monday. It'll end up at the bottom of their list and all of those kinds of things. And so having as much information as we can about what works and when it works is really, really crucial. And so just listening and learning from all of the different divisions is what helps us understand their seasonality, because it is so different division to division. Like financial aid optimization has really different cycles that they're responding to than the digital marketing team does. Some of them overlap, some of them don't, and just keeping aware and abreast of all of those different things.
So what you're saying is it's simple and easy in your house.
Yes. Yeah, it's really, really easy.
Excellent.
What we do is super straightforward.
No nuance there. Excellent.
No, not at all.
Well, now for a couple of anecdotes and examples from our panel. Our clients are constantly juggling competing priorities, and our role in many instances is to help them with strategic recommendations. Mel and Ashley, what are some scenarios you've encountered with your clients? How are we advising and counseling them strategically? Mel, would you like to start?
Yeah, sounds great. So I want you to envision it's, end of basically August and September for many of our clients. And I want to just outline some of the things that are often highest priority. And I say highest because there's other things that they're dealing with. So you've got a view book that you need to finish and get in the hands of your enrollment staff who is starting their college tours and campus visits and high school visits that start end of August, early September. So you've got, again, final edits, or you're printing and you're getting those in. You've also got an entire class of students now starting to move into your institution. And so you're coordinating, the marketing and the communication around move-in dates and things like that. You've got faculty that are starting to come back. It's almost like they just emerge just fresh and great with all these ideas and all these needs because, they forgot that orientation starts next week and they've got, these flyers that are absolutely critical for you to produce and get in the hands of all of these great new incoming students. You've got convocation. So it's where the president is asking you all sorts of things as they are getting prepped for the welcoming back of faculty and the welcoming of students, and a great slide deck that they're working on to produce and talk about the priorities of the year and things like that. Then just the academic year starting. Homecoming is right around the corner and you've got to get all of the things ready and up and running for homecoming. The board needs the 10-day count of the enrollment, where enrollment landed, and you're either helping craft that message if you're in the marketing team, or you're on the enrollment side, and you're, preciously counting all of those students that are still there after the 10-day start of an academic year. And oh wait, a new scandal broke, right? There was hazing in a fraternity, or something happened with a student, and now you're dealing with those things. The list goes on. And that's just the beginning of the year. And so we're constantly thinking about, how do you meet how do you continue to serve as an extension of these clients that we're serving, and how do we take things off their plate and help them be their best selves and produce the great work that they're doing, and advising them and counseling them on the things that they're doing. And then also saying, oh, wait, now don't forget, your scholarship deadline is in December, and so December can sometimes feel like 7 years away in September for a marketer and enrollment professional on a college campus. So, it's just really important to be thinking about those things as we're helping folks, counseling folks and helping them drive their strategy and meeting their goals. One of the things too, I'll mention that we've talked a lot about in the recent years, even before this FAFSA fiasco of the year, is that the trends were that students were depositing later and later. It used to be, people knew and they wanted to get that deposit in, and they wanted to be first and early, and some still are. But then we're also seeing that students are depositing at more than one institution. That's been a trend over the last couple of years, because, okay, what is $150 if I have that money? That if I ultimately decide in August, I don't want to attend that institution that I really thought I could, and I get there and I'm not even sure, well, I have this backup. And so those are the things that we're starting to see, the change in seasonality and the change of timelines, and how we're helping our institutions adapt to those.
Oh, thank you. Ashley, how do you approach guiding our clients with your colleagues on the digital team?
Sure. So I took this question on how the digital team, from the angle of how we're coming up with recommendations and considering seasonality. So one thing I wanted to call out is, from a digital standpoint, we don't just assume seasonality, where our team takes a deep dive into all the available data to understand the full cycle, and uses that to help guide our strategic recommendations, but also keeping that seasonality in the back of our head type thing. So just to give examples, we're going to look at data across all of our digital platforms. We're going to look at Clarity. We have clients that have Clarity. We can use Google Search Console, and we can look at Google Trends. If they're a Slate client, it's a huge bonus there. We can use the Slate actual enrollment data. We can use, Google, you guys heard Alexa all announce that we're a premier partner again for 2024. And part of that comes, we can get our Google reps will pull education specific industry reports, so that can help guide our recommendations. If they are a new client, I will throw in there, that makes it a little bit trickier because you don't have access to all their historical data, but something we could do is we could ask them for it. Like, they can pull the data from our CRM to help us guide how we're going to make recommendations. So all of this data is going to provide us valuable insights. So for example, it's going to help us identify peak periods and slow seasons for searches. We're going to be able to pinpoint months with the highest influx of first-time website visitors, and that's going to help us drive strategy, and maybe those months with a decline in such visits. The data is going to help us analyze website traffic patterns leading up to those deadlines that Mel referenced. And then it's also going to allow us to identify the months when institutions experience the highest volume of applications. So from that, the digital team formulates a strategy by using all of that data to help guide answers to some of these key questions. They're going to think about what platforms and tactics should be employed, and at what times, during what months should our campaigns be active using all that data, and what month should we allocate more budget. Are we doing same budget across the entire flight, or are we thinking about all those trends and putting more budget in certain months and less in others? And then even lastly, considering the call to actions, when should we use them? Which one should we use and when? When are we going to use that learn more type call to action versus apply season, or when are we going to use the apply call to actions or visit the campus. So those are the ways I can think of for how our digital team is using the data to come in from seasonality to help come up with recommendations.
Thanks. Emily, what are the conversations that are happening internally at Carnegie around strategies to support our divisions as we look to gain new business or retain existing clients?
Yeah, I think a huge part of what we do is making everybody look good. Doing some research on B2B trends this year, I learned that there was a study that Harvard Business Review did that 80 to 90% of buyers will make their short list of vendors before they've even started their research process, before they've started their RFP process, and 90% of them will pick from that short list that they made before they even picked up Google. So we know that being in the market and having people be aware of us and our brand is one of the most important things that we have. And so that's where all of the work we do, like publishing our research, having our blog, making sure that we have events, that we're visible, that people see us, and also that we contribute to our overall brand, which is that we're a thought leader, we know things, we get stuff done, and working with all of our divisions to make sure that we find ways to make everybody look as good as possible. We're always trying to make sure that our blog has a variety of content from lots of different divisions, so that people have lots of different ways to interact with us and see that all of our people are knowledgeable and know stuff. It's the best part of what I do, is making other people sound really, really smart, because we know that it's one of those things that it's a little bit invisible, but we know that it works, even if we don't always know exactly how it works, but we know that it works.
Thanks. So the upcoming presidential election is a more unique example of seasonality. Being on a 4-year cadence rather than annually, it still offers us opportunities to prepare strategically and advise our clients on the impacts we may see in the marketplace. I know there have been many discussions on our digital team and at Carnegie at large in preparation for the impact of this election cycle. Ashley, could you speak a little bit to what we're expecting to see and how we are using that information to make strategic recommendations for our clients?
Yeah, the digital team did a lunch and learn a few weeks ago on this topic. So I snagged some stats that I think the greater group would find interesting. So some of the projections in digital ad spend is projected $10 billion in spend on political driven digital advertising in 2024. 2/3 of digital ad spend will occur on programmatic channels, including connected TV and other streaming services, as audience move away from the traditional cable and broadcast television. Meta and Google, which have generally received a smaller chunk of political ad budgets, are expected to experience a huge spike, 156% spike in spend compared to the last election. And then this one I find that really jumps out because it really aligns to a lot of our clients' hot months, but just over half of the political ad budget will be spent 1 month, which is in October, before the election. What this means for what clients can expect is increased ad dollars in the ecosystem could mean a higher cost to be in market and reduced availability of where ads can be shown. There's a possibility for advertisers to shift budget out of digital channels where political ads are allowed into channels where they're not, potentially resulting in increased competition and average cost on platforms where political ads are restricted. Capturing user attention and engagement might be more challenging as the digital space becomes crowded with political content, and potential for increased political commentary on both organic and paid social advertising. So from our perspective, what we might be recommending or things to think about is there's potentially our clients, we might recommend for them to increase budget year over year to maintain or improve last year's results. Potentially to recommend scaled budget flighting, again, thinking about where we're going to see more competition, especially in those key undergraduate months, and then potentially strategic budget shifts towards platforms that don't allow political ads.
Belle or Emily, anything to add on this topic of the upcoming election.
No, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, it's crazy out here. That's my comment.
Absolutely, it is. As many of you in our audience today will be aware, this cycle we have a disruption in the landscape that our panelists have already mentioned a little bit and alluded to today, that's impacting higher ed behavior and trends in a significant way, the FAFSA delay. So Mel, can you start out by talking about a little bit about the actions that we're advising our clients to take to address this new variable?
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, it's staying in the know, which is just such a quick moving and yet slow moving. I'm not sure how it can be both. It's quick moving as in like there's a lot of like hurry up and wait and we don't know what's happening, but there's things to be watching and being mindful of. And then there's, you know, when action is finally taken, you know, that they're able to stay up to date with that and communicate. And so the things that we've been talking about, it's really 4 key areas. It's the clarity and transparency of communication, which is sometimes hard, right? Because there's just sometimes not enough communication or not enough information to be as clear and transparent, but that's also okay. Is that the second one is communicating without over communicating. So making sure when you do have something to say, you're being as clear as possible, being as directive as possible when it can be directive. And you know, if there's been too much time, you can say, hey, no new updates, but not trying to fill the void with noise, but being very clear and transparent in that communication. You know, promise what you can is the third area without over promising, because we know that it seems like a moving target. And you know, so being clear with what you do know and what you can promise is great. And then of course, not forgetting the current student population. You know, there's a lot of our, you know, especially if we serve enrollment and our marketing clients are often so external facing, that there's also this very clear need and great population within the current students that it's important to be communicating with them as well. And so again, a tough situation that I think we will understand how that is going to change trends and change the seasonality moving forward, but don't know that yet. And so that's always that awkward period when things do change and things might be clearly changing how future us will be dealing with things, to not have all the answers. But it's been an interesting, I think, case study to look back on how this is going to change. And again, will this change student behaviors in future cycles? TBD.
Thank you. Ashley, what impact has this had on user behavior in the digital space?
Yeah, we've definitely had clients that have asked to extend campaigns, and I think we're going to get more, is my guess, as it keeps inching closer, and there might be that need to stay in market longer. We've had clients ask about doing keyword research around those hot searches, FAFSA delayed keywords, waitlist keywords, college deferrals, and help them try to come up with a strategy to capitalize on what's happening there. And then the last piece that I find interesting, we're going back to what Mel said just about how it's going to impact future trends, but really when we are looking at data next year and we're looking at, we probably will end up being up potentially next year really early if we see so many late deposits this year. Is that really just keeping in mind when we're looking at year-over-year data? This is a very unique kind of, I guess, instance of that's happening, and we don't know, but that could impact what we're seeing in our data and kind of change our mindset as to oh, we look like we're really up, but maybe we're not really up because it spiked earlier this year. So that's my thoughts there.
Yeah. And Emily, how are we responding to this need for our internal teams?
Yeah. So as soon as we heard the news, we were like, we we need to put something on our website, that we need to say something, we need to do something, because that's an expectation of a company in our position, and that's something we want to do. We want people to know that. But it was, you know, we all know the market moves really, really fast and the news moves really, really fast. So 2-day window, we need to put out something that's thoughtful and informative, and also doesn't sound like a boilerplate message, that doesn't sound like something that everybody else has already written, that we're adding something new and interesting to the conversation. So that's one of those like all hands kind of things where we pull together a meeting of like 8 people who are all really smart and know something and can each contribute a little bit of information, and then working together to pull it together into something quick, easy to read, that we can get to the market as soon as possible. It was a real good example of that sort of all hands approach that I think a lot of us are familiar with at Carnegie, of a bunch of different people, and none of us really work together, but we're all gonna make this thing happen. We did something very similar after SCOTUS's ruling in June. So it's one of those things of being adaptable to, you know, we have seasonality, but then things happen in the news, or the government decides to do something, and being ready and able to respond. And I think we can do that because of the seasonality, because we're used to responding to things. We're used to things happening and getting stuff done.
Absolutely. Well, in our final lightning round, very briefly, panelists, what's the main takeaway that you hope we all remember when it comes to seasonality in higher ed marketing? Ashley?
I would say the more you understand, the more you are familiar with and understand the seasonality to higher ed, I think most people would feel more confident in their job. So I'll do a little plug there, is if that is something that you're interested in learning more, you can always join our company-wide mentorship program. And there's so many people here that have the higher background that you could be matched with. That could be an easy way to help kind of stay abreast with these.
Matt?
I'd say understanding that our clients have a lot more on their plates than just what we're helping them with at that moment, and that the seasonality of their plate is ever evolving. And so, you know, just listening and being understanding of what they're going through.
Emily?
Being flexible and adaptable is, I think, the most important thing that you can be as a marketer, and be knowledgeable and ready to adjust as soon as you need to.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. This was a delight to present for you, and we are happy to have been on the program for day 2 of Inside Out. Thank you all, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your sessions today.